you should be using to understand your clients or shoppers and how they behave on your website. By understanding their journey, you can also often find things that you can improve that boost your conversion rate. And AJ, who also runs the meetup with me, happens to have a business that's dedicated to conversion rate optimization and testing. So she was the perfect expert to come talk about this stuff. So take it away, AJ.
All right, let me get my screen shared. I have a little deck for us today, but I also have the tools pulled up so we can actually take a look at them together. For most e-com stores, I think folks have heard about Google Analytics or are using some tracking tools to see, how many people they get to their site, what pages they're seeing. And today we're going to be looking beyond Google Analytics or beyond the analytics tools. I'm going to share why we should care about insights and these tools to generate insights. We're going to talk about 3 different types of tools to use for insights, how to use them, how to get started with them. I've really picked out tools that anybody can jump into. So as Lori mentioned, like our team focuses on all things conversion. There's a lot of really complex ways to get insights and to really validate what you're doing. But I've picked tools today that anybody can get started with because every kind of e-commerce at any level of growth should be thinking about how their customers are using the site and how to drive conversion. And then I'll give you some examples about the kinds of questions you can ask and then what kind of business reactions or changes you might make as a result of the kinds of things you'll see in these tools. While this is a deck and a presentation today, please just raise your hand at any point, jump in if you have questions, or if you've used these tools and want to share your feedback or things you've learned, like let's make this as collaborative as possible. Lori already gave my introduction. Maybe the key here is just to share my email address. If anything in this prompts questions for you that you're not sure how to navigate, I'm always happy to do like a virtual one-on-one just to demo how some of these work, answer any of your questions too. So feel free to reach out. So we use the word insights today, and what that really means are the conclusions or like the revelations to help drive the business that are from data itself. So the action or like the reason you want insights is to grow your business, to get more revenue, to increase your average order value or the number of orders placed. You also want to have really happy customers. So you want to figure out what maybe is frustrating them today or confusing them today so that you can improve customer satisfaction, get the initial purchase, but get them to keep coming back. And then insights are also a really nice way to stay competitive in a digital marketplace. A lot of tools out there, a lot of brands are using all of these tools and stay on top of what's going on. And if you're not using them, then you're falling behind. So into a quick overview of what CRO is. Conversion rate optimization, or CRO, is the process for finding these insights that we're going to go over today with the goal of improving the customer service, the customer experience, typically on the website directly, so that visitors take the action we want them to do, like convert, buy a product, order on the site, subscribe to a product. It also can include things like getting more email signups. And I like to say that CRO is this balancing act between qualitative insights and quantitative insights. So there's hard numbers that we can look at, and then there's some qualitative software information that will help us understand those quantitative insights. So there's a whole range of things that we can look at for these insights. I talked about analytics as the first one that most companies and most brands are looking at. But today we're going to talk about click tracking analysis, where to get started for that, what kinds of questions to ask there. I'm also going to include some information about what first impression testing is. This is a really great way to get into your first qualitative research. And then intercept studies, which sits more at a balance of getting some qualitative and some quantitative feedback about how people are using your sites. Anybody have any questions about any of those, or maybe a show of hands of like how many people are doing analytics today as a benchmark? Is everybody looking at their data? Okay, I see a couple hands. Anybody doing intercept studies, click tracking, any of these other ones? Thanks, Lisa.
Yes, I am. Yeah, my
Awesome.
company.
Excellent. Do you want to share anything that how you guys are using it?
We're using it to find out basically like a funnel system to see where the customers are landing how many clicks? Is it kind of a rational click? You know,
Mm.
because, you know, to see if they're having any issues. And if they're just clicking way too many times, then we want to find out are they having some kind of errors or something like that on that page, and
Mm.
then possibly leaving the
I love
website.
that description of it as a rational click, because I do think you'll see a lot of times these clicks that don't necessarily make sense for what you designed. And
Yes,
sometimes the clicks happen because of an accident. Sometimes it happens because people are scrolling and they use their mouse to, like how I'm doing, where I'm guiding you and showing you what I'm looking at, like a pointer. And so
yeah,
sometimes that leads to some clicks, but still gives you insight into what they're doing.
yes,
And then
exactly,
they click on stuff that's not clickable. And that makes you wonder, like, oh, why do they think it's clickable? Why do they think that's going
exactly,
to take them somewhere? Yeah, that's
exactly.
awesome.
And that's kind of what we trying to figure out, whether it's intentional or are they having some kind of issues.
Yeah. I think
Mhm.
the other one I throw into that mix is sometimes we get rage clicks. So people
Yes.
will click because they're frustrated and they'll just click on everything and
Yeah,
anything. And some of these tools will show you when that happens and surface that as a point of frustration too.
yeah, because we also use Microsoft Claria, and that
Mhm.
kind of that kind of shows some of those irrational clicks as well. Tells us where they're doing it at. Mhm.
Awesome. Well, that's the tool we're going to demo today. So
Mhm.
good lead into that.
Okay.
Anybody else doing any of these highlighted analyses, impression testing, intercept testing? Okay, great. Well, I'll give a little overview for each of these to introduce why we do them and what it's about. So the first one is 5-second testing. And this is again, the qualitative approach. So we're really trying to get feedback from people who have never seen our website before to see what they notice about it. And these are typically done with tools that provide participants for you. So 5-second test is the most well-known one in the field. It really started this off in a digital testing way. But you can also use tools like user testing or Try My UI to have it time how long they see the page and then pull it away and then ask questions. So it's a very, very basic premise, which is if I look at an image of a website or I look at a page and I only get to see it for 5 seconds, what do I know about this page? What is confusing or what doesn't stand out to me? And then maybe how this makes me feel. So like, did this brand seem professional? Did this seem like an amateur site? Like there might be some feedback in that as well. And so this is a nice way to get a fresh perspective on why people might be bouncing from your website and to see if visitors are connecting with your brand message quickly. Because if we're not getting them to connect and understand that your website sells tennis shoes for kids right off the bat, they're going to bounce and you're going to lose them. So we got to make sure we get that first impression correct. So using 5-second test, they actually have a template that you can just grab and start using. And I'm going to point out some benefits or some edits I typically make for this. So generally, this is a test that's done for usability testing, conversion rate optimization, like we're talking about today. And we're going to be looking at what's visually appealing, what catches their eyes in the design, what leaves a lasting impression. So once you go to set up, you can start with this template. So use the template. And then you'll go through and first you're going to want to set up a screener. So you want the screener to include information that helps you find the right target audience. So if we were a shoe company and maybe we're competing with Nike, Adidas, et cetera, on this list, we might include a list of did you purchase from these brands in the last month? We could spend a whole hour talking about screener questions, but we basically are looking for just a handful of questions that will help us find the right people. And my pro tip here is you want to include a decoy option, which would basically mean that somebody's moving too fast through the screener questions and they select something that doesn't exist. So on my example here, I've included Stride Style, which is not a company. It sounds like it might be a shoe company. And if somebody were to check all these boxes and said, I purchase from everything, then we kick them out. They would be disqualified from participating in this because they've selected something that isn't real. So they're not representing their true experience. So you can set any question you want. You pick the answers and whether it qualifies or disqualifies this participant from participating in your study. And again, all the participants are coming from 5-second test, from 5secondtest.com. And this is your way of finding the right people in their pool of customers. or users. Any questions about screener questions? Feel free to raise your hand if anything sparks a question here. Once you figure out who you're going to be testing with, next you're going to figure out what it is you're testing. So this is their default question is look at this homepage design for 5 seconds and remember as much as you can. We want to keep the instructions pretty short and we want to make them kind of have a sense of what we're asking them to do. So just remember what you can is great because we'll then ask more specific questions afterward. We generally want to set it to 5 seconds. There's kind of a range that you might want to do, but probably don't want to make it too short because they won't see anything. If you spend too much time with it, you're not really capturing that first impression. And then with using this tool, you'll pick a specific image that will represent your site. So you can grab a screenshot of the homepage and all the elements that they would see without scrolling, and that would be a good representation of what your site looks like. The tool gives you the opportunity to do it for desktop, you can preview it, you can do a whole bunch of stuff here to set it up, but those are the basic configurations to get started. And then now we're going to configure the follow-up questions. So these are the questions that the participant sees after they've seen your screenshot for 5 seconds. You want to make sure your questions are framed in a way that are clearly open or closed. What I mean by that is a closed question is, did you like this? Yes or no? Or did you like this? Rate it on a scale of 1 to 5. Closed questions mean you're giving them the answers or it's very straightforward how to answer it. Versus an open-ended question is more free form. They're going to type out a response. It'll be harder to analyze, but it may provide you with more meaningful insights for some of the, why they selected the closed answers that they did. So these are the default questions in the 5-second test. What are your impressions of the homepage? What do you like or dislike? What's the meaning of the main message on this page? Do you remember the tagline of this page? If so, what is it? You might add questions like, based on your first impression, how would you describe this company? A tip that I like to throw out there is there's these product reaction cards done by Microsoft that include a wide set of characteristics that are positive and negative, like professional, sloppy, whatever, sort of like a set of attributes. And you could make a closed question by saying, pick 5 of these words that best describe what you remember from seeing the page. That gives you a nice word cloud of the things that people thought or not about the page. And if it's really disconnected from what you want your brand to represent, or if it's showing some negative things, it's going to point to opportunities to improve. And then after you set all this up, you hit launch, they'll collect the feedback for you and they'll send you an email when all that data's back for you to analyze. Any questions about setting that up and why we might want to do this? So what you'll learn from this, so once you get all those great results back, you might learn something like visitors understood that we sold sports shoes for children, but nobody was mentioning something that's really important to our brand, such as we use recycled materials. So if that were the case, if you had that insight from this first impression test, then what you as a business might do is spend some time figuring out how to make your value propositions more prominent on your site. So in this case, you might create a visual representation of the key differentiators. Maybe you create some icons with some text under it, you put it above the fold, so that visitors can quickly learn, yes, that you sell sport shoes for children, but you also use, recycled materials made in the US, free shipping. And then you could run this test again and see if some of those characteristics start to appear now that you've made it more obvious in that first impression part of the page. Any questions on any of that? Nobody's done this before, right? Has anybody done this where you show someone your website who's never seen it before and just ask them what they think of it? It's kind of more of a guerrilla style first impression test. So this is something that I encourage some of the startups I work with to do, where they may go to a context where maybe if they're selling, sports shoes for kids, maybe they'll go to the gym and they'll find some parents and they'll say, hey, do you mind looking at my site and giving me some feedback? That would be a way to do it in the real world to get some quick feedback as well. All right, on to tool number 2. This category are intercept surveys. So intercept surveys are often called exit intent surveys. Basically, what we're doing is we're interrupting the browsing experience or the shopping experience to ask questions to learn something from your real customers as they're in certain places on your site. So you might look for something like, why are my visitors leaving my website from the homepage and not going anywhere else? Why are visitors abandoning checkout? Maybe why are visitors finding a product, going a product page, but not adding to cart? And so you might want to ask different questions at these different moments. Maybe you're pairing this with analytics, and your Google Analytics is saying you're getting a lot of people dropping out after they add to cart. Let's run an intercept study to understand why that's happening. So you can use a bunch of different tools for this. We've got Opt-in Monster does a lot of these, Hotjar, SurveyMonkey. These are tools where you add a snippet to your website, and then it will actually survey and get that information as you go. You generally don't want to leave these running all the time because you want to collect the information, address the problem, and then not interrupt the browsing experience too much in the future. So for Hotjar, you would go in and you would create a new survey. They also have a template for the exit intent survey. So this is what it looked like just by default when I clicked create new exit intent survey. It pre-selected a bunch of things for me. A lot of the default settings are pretty good. I'll point out a couple places where I would definitely want to make some revisions. But the key thing is you want to make sure that all the choices you're making here match to the kind of question or the kind of problem you're trying to get some insights on. So some specifics here. I like to adjust the targeting. So like I said at the beginning, if we have a problem where people are seeing the PDP but not adding to cart, we don't need to ask them that question when they're on the homepage or when they're on the blog. We want to ask them that question when they're on the PDP and they look like they're leaving. So what we might do is set up some specific URLs here. They have some ways to match not just simple URLs, but based on some different queries, so you can always get the right type of page. And that way you can ask more specific questions that make sense to people in that context. If you're just generally asking questions about your customers, you might want to do the inverse and exclude pages that make sense, that don't make sense to the question. So if you're asking general questions like, how did you find us? Why do you like, what questions do you have about your experience so far? You may not want to ask that to someone who's like in the throes of checkout, but you may want to ask that to anybody exiting, like, what was your experience like today? So you can use either of those things to narrow in on the right people and the right place in the journey to ask the questions. Up next are the actual questions. So I really like that Hotjar started with a default of 3 questions. You really don't want to go over 3 or 4 questions because remember, we're intercepting someone in the real world and asking a quick set of questions. We really want them to answer, and they're not going to answer the longer the survey is, the less likely they are to stick around and answer that. Here, we want to ask those closed questions first. So you may actually want to give them a specific set to easily choose from. Why are you leaving? I didn't find what I was looking for. It's too expensive. I don't have enough information, right? You may want to, if you were just talking to someone on the street, ask these questions and like explore and talk about it with them. But because you're not there with them, you don't want to waste their time asking them to type this all out. You'd rather have a lot of people respond and get a general sense that maybe for 40% of people, they just didn't have enough information. And that would lead to some additional work from there. And then you want to make sure those questions are really specific about that context that we're talking about. So, we're sorry to see you go. What's your reason for leaving? Some of these you might want to make more specific to your brand or more specific to the product detail page. Maybe they found there's an order quantity minimum and it was too high. So maybe you might suggest, I really was looking for getting fewer of this item, or I was looking for this in another color. Might be more context specific for a product detail page. And then you can launch this on mobile and desktop. They give you a little preview here so you can see how it all comes together. And then what might you learn from this? So if you frame it in the right way and you're asking the right people, you might learn something like 40% of visitors who are leaving checkout say that they're leaving to find a discount code. So you might conclude from that insight that you want to make it easier to find and use promo codes, or you might not want to have that at all as a nudge. So either it could be something you automatically apply coupons as they find them in the site, like those one-click to apply type situations. We've also found the default for a lot of the tools a lot of the websites will default to showing this coupon field when maybe you don't even offer coupons. So why have it there at all if it's going to cause people to think about it and go look around for a promo code if they're not going to find one? And if you do have promo codes for some people, but not for most people, you might want to change the design for it so it's not as obviously something you want to look at. So lots of ways that this insight could drive action for your company to then drive conversion rates higher. Any questions about Hotjar or this like exit intent intercept studies, surveys? Has anyone done any surveying before for their customers?
Nope, we have not.
Nope. Well, let me speak to that more broadly then. So I would say one of the like kind of low-hanging ways to get some qualitative insights is to send a survey to your email list and ask for information about the experience they've had with your products, information about their background, maybe what motivated them to purchase. It's a different context than this, but it's another audience where you can get some, easy feedback if you have specific questions. I like to do that type of survey to inform what we write in the homepage hero. So how do my customers and what words do they use to describe my business? And I ask them that question in the survey, tell me about which products you purchased. How would you describe my business to a friend or a colleague? And then you can borrow from some of the language you hear back in that survey to then shape a more effective message for conveying what you do. All right, and last but certainly not least is our click tracking tools section. What we have here is a level up or maybe a more data, like a visualization of your data for how people are using your site. So analytics will give you numbers of how many people did things. And the click tracking or heat mapping tools are going to give you some visualizations to correspond with where are visitors clicking? Are they interacting with the key buttons and actions I want them to take? Are they even seeing parts of my website that I worked really, really hard to write up and create? And then maybe nobody's seeing it because they're not even scrolling down to that part of the website. So again, these are kind of a variety of how these tools are set up. And as mentioned earlier today, Microsoft Clarity is the one we'll take a look at today. It's a free tool, and they'll do passive collection on your site. So then you can dive into all these questions as maybe you're wondering about your homepage design. You can go look at that at any time and look back. So you don't have to proactively set it up. It's passively collecting it, just like Google Analytics, and then you can analyze it like we'll go through today. And I did want to share that Microsoft Clarity has this live demo where you can really play with all of these things before adding it to your site. So you can really dig into it and understand it and see if it's the right tool for you as well. So looking at Microsoft Clarity, there's like 3 main reports that I think are really important to look at. So the first one is figuring out what are the top ranked areas for clicks and taps. So we're looking at their homepage for Microsoft Clarity, and we're seeing they're actually doing a really good job of getting people to click on buttons. So you can see these like red spots mean people are clicking here, focusing their actions there. So they're getting a lot of action on elements that are clickable. You can also see there's clicks happening elsewhere, which are those like kind of stray clicks, and we may not know why people are doing it. But the key thing is that the focus is on the elements that are designed to be clicked on. Another thing I like to look at for any key page, especially landing pages, is how far down people scroll. So again, this is the same page. So this is the home page. And this is like how far people got. So 75% of people reached the part where there were testimonials. Their website's doing a really good job. I actually was really impressed looking at their demo at the data that we're seeing here. I see a lot of drop off when I look at companies' sites where you'll see like 25% or 10% of people are reaching certain parts of the page. And if you are spending time with that content and you want to make sure people see it because it's part of the journey to understand what you do, you got to make sure they're actually seeing it. So this is a good way to find that out. And then this is another one where you can like remove and like look at desktop versus mobile. So you can remove those numbers that we saw in the first one and really just focus in on the most popular actions. And again, their mobile is doing pretty well here as well. And then last but not least, and let me click over to Clarity for this one. They have this ability to watch videos of people interacting with the page itself. So let me move my thing around. So I'm in the recording section. Over here, I can click on any individual session that they captured and recorded, and I can see which page it took place on. I can see where they came from. I can see how many clicks were made in the session. And so this can be a total time waste. I just want to name that, because a lot of people, you'll get in here and you're like, this is great. Look how interesting it is to watch somebody use my website. But what am I going to learn from seeing clicks over and over and over? Probably not very much. It's going to be that aggregated data that's going to really teach you more about what's going on. But sometimes it is useful to dive in here. So I worked on a client where we could not solve what was going on their mobile checkout. Like looking at the website, it looked really smooth. Looking at the analytics, we were seeing a lot of drop off. We couldn't figure out who was having trouble until we dug into the data a little bit. We saw it was like a certain type of device. We didn't have that device on our team or their team. And we happened to come into, I think we were using Hotjar at the time, and we were able to filter and find people who use a certain type of product. So maybe we'll say mobile here, and filter into like the specific browser they may have been on. So maybe it was Firefox on mobile. And we could find a session and watch somebody who was on that experience. And what we found in that case was their entire page stopped working on like a small set of things. They could actually move, but it would basically, like it was overexpanded on the page, and it just looked really crazy. And people really had to work hard and spend a lot of time using it. And we wouldn't have caught that bug without digging into it. So again, can find a lot of really good information in these videos, but I wouldn't start here. I would use this as a way to like layer in more information from what you're seeing somewhere else to start to understand what might be going on there. You can also see maybe how someone uses a product detail page. I found to be insightful of like, people are getting stuck at this stage. Let me watch like 5 or 10 videos and see, are people interacting or getting stuck with any elements? So there's a lot of different layers here. A lot of these tools also layer in some automatic detection, like we talked about earlier. Derek, you mentioned like your company was looking for, some things like certain clicks that were off, or maybe points of frustration. And some of these tools will actually just make a list of like, we think these are the sessions where someone had this, and you can go through and watch those recordings as well.
Okay. All right.
So example of what you might have seen in a click tracking analysis is, let's say 20% of visitors saw this testimonial section on our homepage. Maybe we think that's an important piece of information. Not many people are seeing it. So what we might take from that data insight, maybe we shorten our homepage hero so visitors are more likely to scroll down the page. Maybe we reduce the white space. Sometimes if the page is too spread out, people don't realize they can keep scrolling. So we want to do things to let people know they can scroll. And then if really they're just not going to scroll all the way to the page because maybe there's information that's boring, not relevant, confusing, you might reorder information or take other things out so the more important information is higher up on the page. So this is an example of how we might use a tool to find the insight to then find the action on what will help our conversion rates. And that's the presentation for today. Again, like I mentioned at the start, if you have any questions about any of these, happy to take them now, but also feel free to shoot me an email. And I want to just plug for a new podcast we just launched called the Experiment Zone podcast, where we're doing like 15-minute teardowns of sites. So check it out if you've got some free time and are looking for some conversion insights.
Okay. And then to do that, we just contact you by email and give our company's website and things like that, and then you kind of just go through it and I guess somewhat do like an audit type of thing and look at different pages and hyperlinks.
Yeah, if you're interested in being on that podcast, I'm happy to talk to you about that and have you on. But even if you just want to meet one-on-one and go through your site, happy to do that too. Lori and I also do that as part of the meetup. So once a quarter, we go through a handful of stores. Usually, what do we do for Lori? And we have a community discussion about some improvements too. So lots of ways to get input onto what you might do to improve conversion.
Those,
Okay.
by the way, are really fun, and we welcome the audience participation. So if you like to come and echo your thoughts, they're certainly welcome.
Okay. Yeah, I find that doing, I guess you would say, a CRO or an audit once a year, it really kind of gives you an idea of what's going on with the website and what customers are actually seeing, because as retailers, we don't necessarily always see what the customer's doing. And a lot of times I found that the checkout process was an issue, but I didn't know it. And so customers getting all the way to checkout, and for some reason, it wouldn't accept their credit card or whatever, and they got frustrated and left, And so I had to kind of figure out, why are they leaving? Why are so many abandoned carts? So I'm quite sure the audit would pick out things like that, or see things that we don't see that customers go through. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of it is like, we're just kind of always busy running our business, and
Yes.
like it's hard to keep an eye on all those pieces and how they come together.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's complexity in how new things coming onto the site interact with other elements. And then sometimes just like customers' behavior changes in general.
Okay.
I generally find that a lot of e-commerce companies are spending most of their time getting traffic to the site, and they're not really worried about the other side as often of the conversion rate itself. And if only they spend a little bit more time on conversion, it multiplies the impact of all that other time and money they're spending on the other side getting people to the site. So yeah, I think once a year is a great start. We definitely have clients that are just doing it all the time to make sure they're, every single page is working well to getting people to convert.
Exactly. And that's what I call a leaky bucket.
Yeah.
You spend all this money in advertising, and you're not converting. People are leaving. So
Right.
absolutely. So now, is your service do you have kind of like a to Z type of service where you'll look at the website, see where the issues are at, and then kind of discuss a strategy, and then possibly have you folks go in and make the changes? Is that something that you guys do as well?
Yeah, we do that. I think the other thing that we haven't really touched on today is we do A/B testing. So a lot of the
Yes.
ideas we talked about today, you can
Okay.
then take those insights or those like business takeaways and then turn them into an A/B test to say, if I move up my testimonials, does it actually drive conversion rates up or not? And so you
Okay.
can isolate those variables through A/B testing. So we also do that end to end.
Oh, okay, good enough. Good enough. Absolutely. All right. And that also includes SEO too.
Nope,
You
we
guys.
don't do it. We're highly specialized. We only do on-site stuff.
Okay.
Lori is our comprehensive
Yeah.
partner here. Yep.
Oh, okay, good enough. Yeah, I know, because I know that's also part of it too. SEO sometimes creates some issues too if site is not optimized. All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
you
Lori and I are a
you
great
figure-
team. We've been doing this for a while, and she's got the broad experience of how all the pieces come together. My
Yes.
team's just doing really deep dive into like, what is it about the experience that's helping or hurting conversion?
Okay.
Ultimately, what she does helps you maximize the return you're getting on all the efforts you make to drive traffic, because the
Yes.
equation is really traffic times conversion rate times average order value, and equals your revenue. And if you can increase any one of those metrics, then it's a win.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. Last year I
But
had.
it doesn't. These days, advertising's gotten so expensive, it doesn't pay to do it if your site isn't converting.
Exactly. And I had that issue last year where I was running a lot of Google ads, and they were just clicking and leaving. And so that's when I decided to do an audit, and come to find out, it's really gut wrenching when you have an audit, because you're being told there's a lot of issues going on with your website, and it's like, wow, and
You're too
so
close to the baby to see it. Yeah.
exactly. That's what happened. I was too close to the baby, and it was almost like, when I read this, it was like a 18-page audit of everything about the site, and it really woke me up, and I said, you know what? I'm going to have this done once a year. because of the
Yeah.
amount of money I spent in ads and they weren't converting. And that was the issue. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Does anyone have
Mark,
any
I was gonna
questions?
say, Mark with a K, you certainly have some experience in all of this. Any input?
Yeah, I think a lot of what AJ said is definitely spot on. We definitely should be doing more of this on our end. We use Google Analytics a lot. We just recently set up Clarity, haven't really, dove into that much. It's like, as you said, it's like, it's so hard. Just we're constantly trying to get new business in the door and focus on the business itself, running the business. It's like a lot of this stuff, it's hard to spend time than diving into the analytics here, but it's definitely useful. Yeah, we would love to do more of this.
Cool. Anybody else have any questions? We've got a quiet group today.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get it
Yeah.
posted on YouTube and the offer's there if anyone wants to ask any follow-up questions over email. If you're the quiet type, like, I'm more of an insights driven person who likes to sit and think about it. So if you're like me and you want to send the email after, happy to have that. But
Okay.
thank you all for being on. And Lori, I forget which month is next, but I think either next month or the month after, we'll soon be doing that store critique that we mentioned as well. So stay tuned on meetup.com for information on that. And we'd invite you all to add your stores there. And then lastly, if you have any ideas for meetup topics that you're wanting to hear from, like an individual presenter or a group panel, Lori and I are always on the hunt for good ideas to share with the group. So feel free to send either of us a note with your idea as well.
Okay. Now, is there a form on Meetup to put our website and information in there as of now, or is that getting closer to the date?
You can send me an email to start if you'd like to be submitted for that meetup.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
aj@experimentzone.com. Yeah, Lori, I had a couple ideas I noted down for like how to collect ideas and stuff. So I'm going to start thinking about that. So we'll have that to share next time as well, as like how to be in touch with us, and not just by email, but maybe some ways to kind of vote on ideas for topics and things like that.
Okay. Now, do you guys have a Facebook page or like Facebook group
Mhm.
that we can join and then kind of get updates and things
Lori,
like
I think
that?
that one's linked at the bottom of each meetup description.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Austin Retail and E-commerce Meetup, but I know myself, and I'm working on getting Mark with the C involved in some of the other Facebook groups around
Okay.
e-commerce. So I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. So,
Okay. All right. I'll go ahead and take a look and see if I can find you.
and we both have sites for our businesses, respective businesses. So,
Okay. Okay.
Derek, are you already on the Ecommerce Facebook group? There's a
No.
few of those.
Yeah, there's a couple of them I'm on, but not the Austin. I'm on Ecom, and they have a Facebook group. It's a small Facebook group, but it's more they get into strategies and things like that. But I'm always looking for new groups to get involved with, because I'm finding different groups kind of focus on different things, whether it's
Yeah.
marketing strategy, even some of them on wholesale. Those of
Sure.
us that deal with wholesale, and then even those that deal with drop shipping, or I noticed there's some groups that deal with strictly Walmart retailers, those of us that sell on Walmart, strategies, as well as Amazon. So yeah, I'm happy to look at different groups and join them, based on their information and the exchange we have.
Awesome.
Mhm.
well, I
All
think
right.
that's
Well,
it
thanks everyone for
today.
being on today.
Yeah,
And
thank
we
you.
hope to see you all
Thanks.
next month.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, I had my router go down, all the computers in the office down, and so now I got them back up, and I caught it right at the end. So I apologize. So,
Well, we'll have it all
technical issues
posted for you to
happen.
listen to as well. So let us know if you have any questions after.
Okay,
All right. Take care,
sure.
everybody. Have a great
Thanks,
week.
guys.
Stay well.
You too.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.